Hey everyone, welcome back to Cool Stuff Etc. My name is Riley, and it has been a minute since I have posted a video. Um, I, when starting this channel, I knew that would happen. I'm very forgetful. um, and yeah, it is honestly just been forgetfulness. I forgot that started this whole thing. I just tend to do that just to forget things that I start and they don't get finished. But um, having completed reading a book this past week or weekend reminded me that I had a video to make, and that reminded me about this whole channel and all that. So yeah, as the title of this video will likely suggest in some regard, this is the first installment of my 50 book challenge review sort of series. So I have my 50 book challenge that I started at the beginning of this year, and 2 months in, I've already finished 5 books, which isn't a ton relative to other people, but it is a lot for me, at least in the past couple of years. This is the most I've read in the shortest amount of time, and I have a couple other books that are in varying levels of finished. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go through the 5 that I read, and then from the for the rest, I'll do it 5 at a time, essentially. So why don't we just get started? Starting with The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. If you are, this is introducing The Witcher. If you're familiar with The Witcher video game series or the Netflix show or whatever it might be, this is I think that technically this is the second released, but chronologically the first one. And it actually is just a short story collection. And I didn't expect it to be as good of an introduction, as a short story collection. I just, in my brain, like, that doesn't seem to necessarily translate as much as like a full novel that just tells one story. But in a way, this does kind of tell one story, because the author has written this umbrella narrative that sort of ties things together. And really, it's a great introduction to Geralt, who is the Witcher. I will say that the stories do vary in quality. They're all good. I would say they're all good stories. Very philosophical. I would say pretty literary in the writing style. The characters have a manner of speaking that is. I wasn't sure if it was due to the translation that it felt a little stilted, or if it was intentional, or not maybe stilted is the wrong word, but it very old style of speaking. I don't know how else to describe it. But I actually liked it. I think that it fits the fantasy world. It fits all of this royal, it fits the royals when they speak that way, and it fits the commoners when they kind of speak that way. And so I thought it worked really well. And I will say that, as I mentioned, the stories are all good. They vary in quality. The really good stories are really good. I particularly loved The Last Wish, the title story, and The Lesser Evil. And the Lesser Evil, if you've seen the Witcher series, I believe that The Lesser Evil was adapted as the first episode, or, for the most part, the first episode of that series. I've actually only ever watched the first episode of that series, and so I didn't finish it for some reason. I didn't continue with it. I do want to go back, but now that I'm reading the book series, I kind of want to get through more of the books before I continue the series, so as not to spoil myself, because I'd rather read it from the books. Yeah, I think that these are very interesting stories. Geralt is a very cool character. He's very complex emotionally. He kind of has this emotional shield. Like, he's not super emotive, but you can tell there's a lot going on under the surface when it comes to morals and that sort of thing. So, and then it kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger, which I won't spoil, but a very, very interesting cliffhanger that really makes me want to read the next book, which I do have, Sword of Destiny, but it's probably not going to get read for a little while, at least, which is a shame, but maybe I'll bump it up the list. But and the last thing I'll say is that Geralt is very, very horny in these books, and in the video games, to my understanding too, which I've not played. But yeah, dude is fucking all the time, and I mean, it's fine. Like, it doesn't bother me, but it's just, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like it fits with his character when you know what his like motivations are. I don't know, it doesn't like super fit in my estimation, but I'm not the author, so I, but yeah, great book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And maybe I'll link my like I don't use Goodreads at all. I use this app called the Storygraph. So maybe I'll link my account there if you give a shit about it. But so it'll be in the description, I guess. But yeah, that's The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. The next book that I read was Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. If you are sorry, if you are not familiar with this novel, it is actually the first in the quote-unquote Hannibal Lecter series. As you'll see, this big yellow, it's actually not a sticker, but this big yellow circle on the front. Hannibal Lecter's Legacy of Evil. They advertise that and everything, but Hannibal he plays a role in the story for sure. But he's only in it for probably a couple chapters, like probably not more than 20 to 30 pages at the very most, so that's probably being generous. This novel is mostly centered around Will Graham, who I find to be a very, very compelling protagonist. I think Hannibal Lecter is a great villain, and I would have loved to have more of him in here. He is very cool to read in this novel, but Will Graham on his own, I think, carries this novel sufficiently enough. I think that, if you've seen the Hannibal show, which I've seen parts of, kind of understand Will Graham is like hyper empathetic. He sort of struggles with that, and it kind of, it's a struggle for him. It creates very complex emotional reactions to things, and he has a lot of difficult choices to make in this novel, I would say. I think that the mystery here is very compelling. They're hunting down this Tooth Fairy murderer, and later you find out what the Red Dragon title is related to. I won't spoil it because it's very cool. And I think that it really, the mystery was really engaging. Halfway through the novel, the author just cuts to the murderer and kind of tells things from his side of the story. And I haven't read a book that has done that, to my knowledge at least, that I can remember. And it really changed how you view the murderer. For the first half of the novel, you just hear of him by Graham and Crawford and Lecter, and they kind of talk about him, as this like monster who is just like endlessly evil. And I mean, to a degree, he's killing people, so he is not a great person. But when what I think that is really special about this book is it takes time to be empathetic towards people, and like you kind of see how the monster was created, and you see how the monsters are struggling within themselves in the same way that Graham is. So I think that's honestly very genius. It's a very smart idea, and it's done very, very well. The climax at the end of the novel, there's kind of I don't want to say a twist, but there's kind of a big whoa moment that was really cool. I will admit, I don't want to brag, but I did call it, but it was still awesome nonetheless. And I didn't call it until like later, in the book, obviously, and yeah, I mean, there's just, this book has a lot of thematic depth. I think that there's a lot of discussion, like I said, about like, what creates monsters. Hannibal seems to be this like impenetrable sociopath with no motive, and then you have Will Graham and Francis Dollarhide, who's the murderer, who are struggling with similar feelings, I would say, similar confusions. And there's other minor characters like Freddie Lowndes, who kind of have like less than desirable motives, I'll say. But yeah, great book. I really recommend it. I'm currently reading Silence of the Lambs, so that'll be in the next video. And I'm really liking that one too. I'm not sure if I like this one more than that one yet. I haven't finished it, but I definitely am enjoying myself. So yeah, that's Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Whew. Alrighty, 3 more left. I gave Red Dragon 4.25 stars. That's the way Storygraph, you can rate it from 1 to 5 stars and have quarter, half, or 3/4 stars. So that's what I've been using. So next up is a very different novel than the previous 2, and that is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. This is the second novel I've written. I wrote this. This is me. I am him. This is the second novel I've read that is written by Haruki Murakami. And it is very, very different from the first one I read. The first one I read being Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. That book is more of a sci-fi, sort of cyberpunk story, kind of like a noir story, whereas this is like I don't know what, it's a dramatic story, very literary, very sad, a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters just talking, like it's very character driven, kind of a romance book, I guess you could say, but kind of in a dark way. And yeah, it's I guess I will say that it's a novel about a young man who I forget the name of. What the hell is his name? What is his name? I have whatever on the back. Toru. Thank you, brain. Toru, young man, and he's kind of just coming to terms with his existence, his purpose in life, relationships, all these sorts of things as he's going through college, and he's kind of doing that while kind of weighing his relationship with this young woman named Naoko, who she and Toru lost Toru's best friend, her boyfriend, who they were both like very attached to, and it sort of has like damaged them emotionally, mentally, and in some ways physically too, probably. And yeah, it just builds from there. Kind of starts with that very basic premise and adds some characters, adds some different ideas, and goes from there. As I said, the novel is very sad. It does have a hopeful message at the end, but you're not going to really feel good about yourself, I would say. This isn't a feel-good novel, even though there's some romance elements in it. I did find myself feeling very emotional while reading it. I didn't, cry or anything. I'm a man. I don't cry at books. Sorry. Yeah, but it is emotional. It definitely, had me tearing up a little bit. One thing that you should know before going into this book is of how explicitly sexual it is, and even at times how gross it can be, with doing very weird sexual stuff that I won't detail here. If you want to know about it, you can read this book. But yeah, it's very, there's some extremely sexual moments, so actually a lot of them, and it kind of, I don't know, that's not typically what I enjoy reading. I don't read that kind of stuff, but it was shocking. It was kind of jarring as to my expectations, but I think ultimately it does work in the novel because of who the characters are. They're trying to navigate their lives, and when you're young and finding different romantic partners, sex is part of that. So it's definitely understandable why it's in here. It's justified for being in here. It's not just just to titillate people and satiate their lust, but just know that going in, because it was it was surprising, I would say. As for the characters, as I said, this is a very character-driven story. The characters are, some of them at least, are unlikable, and I would say all of them at some points do unlikable things, or things that you as a reader will definitely question, including Toru. But I think that the way Murakami writes people and the way he builds character is very good. He's good at writing characters. He's good at making characters seem pretty real, having you connect and empathize with them, and all their struggles and all of that. And also just characters kind of relate. But Toru's the center of this, so the characters kind of relate to Toru in different ways. So he has a friend who's kind of an asshole, and but Toru doesn't necessarily see him like that all the time. but it kind of relates to how Toru is like not sure of who he is as a person in a sense. So I'll stop blabbing about it. This is a very good book. I think I enjoy Hard Boiled Wonderland more. It's just more my speed, but I was happy to read this, and I have fond memories of doing so. I gave it 3.75 stars, 3.75 stars out of 5. Next up, we have a classic of science fiction, and I would say a little bit of fantasy, science fantasy, of Dune by Frank Herbert. I won't talk about this too long because I mean it's fucking Dune. One of those novels, I should say, one of those novels that just kind of blows my mind with how detailed and intricate the world is, all of the different factions and how they interrelate, and all the customs and all these, like, it just feels such a real world, which is one of its great strengths. The story, like the political intrigue and like the the betrayals and all that stuff. The story is very good on its own, but I think what makes this book special for me is the like it's kind of, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like subtext, but I would say that it's like kind of it's only briefly explored. It very, very much in the foreground, but it is briefly explored in this novel about how Paul being the savior of the Fremen is like not a good thing necessarily, or how it might not be such a good thing. I won't talk about more because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a very interesting idea to explore, especially around the time when this was written, where sword and sorcery was really popular, and it was just heroes that were like not super complex, just like they were good guys or whatever. Excuse me. And in that way, like Elric comes to mind when I think of like some more morally complex hero, and Paul is that to an extent. I don't think of the characters in this book, Paul is the most like saltine cracker, like just like white bread dude. He's just like a wonderkind who can just like do everything, not perfectly, but he just like is kind of really good at everything, and there's like, I don't know. So he's the least interesting character, but on the flip side, he is partly the most interesting part of the novel, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think that it's just a great book. I mean, do I need to tell you that? I give it 4.5 stars. It's really, really good. And I'm really excited to read the next book in the series, and all the following books. I want to go through all 6 of them, honestly. And there's some like side books too that I may or may not read at some point, but I definitely want to read the main series books at least. Because I'm just like, where do you go from here? Like, with certain series, it's very clear. Like Lord of the Rings, you know where it's gonna go to an extent. Like you have an idea, but like this seems more open ended. Like a lot of things could happen. I'm just interested to see where this series is taken. So that is Dune by Frank Herbert. Go read it. You should read it, or at the very least watch the movie. I guess it's not, I mean, I don't love that movie, but. And then lastly for this video, we have 20th Century Boys. This is the volume 3 perfect edition. I had debated whether to include manga in my book challenge, just because I didn't want it to feel like quote unquote cheating, just because they're so short. I read this like in a day, and I don't honestly have that much manga that I'm reading. I'm reading this one and Berserk in physical media. So I don't like. That's how I think ultimately that's why I was okay with it. And also just the length of this, like its length is more akin to at least like a novella. It took me at least 2.5 hours to read, which is probably could read like a 90-page book in that time. So, or 90 pages or so of like a normal book. So I decided to include it. But with that being said, that like no one cares about that anyways. This series, this is volume 3 of I believe 11. This series has blown my mind consistently. So like I would say every 8 to 10 chapters, there's just a moment that like had my jaw drop. Like legitimately, while I was reading it, I was just like so shocked that this story took such a turn. It starts out as a very small mystery about a guy named Kenji, and he's an adult now. But it cuts back to when he was a child, and he and his friends were doing kid stuff and doing playing kid games, I should say. And as an adult now, there is some sort of cult that is that was started up and is now slowly developing, amassing more followers and stuff. And he slowly learns that it is based around the games that he and his friends would play as children. And so that starts this whole mystery of like who's behind this, and why is it, what are their goals, and so the story develops from there. And so what starts out as a very not very small, but a rather small sort of mystery that is contained this like small suburb of Tokyo, or of Japan. I don't know if it's Tokyo actually, of Japan, quickly does develop into this like decades spanning adventure with like sci-fi elements, action elements, dystopian elements, thriller, and the premise itself is just cool. I would say that of the manga that I'm aware of, it has probably the coolest premise, and even just in general fiction, like I think that this premise is like so smart, and the way they handle it is just honestly genius. Like this is an incredible series. I'm only 3 volumes in, but I like desperately need to know. I as soon as I finished this, like I was like the next day, I couldn't stop myself from ordering the next 2 volumes because I was like, I need to know where this story goes. Like I just need to know. And after volume 2, I was like, things were getting, I don't want to say what because I do not want to spoil it, but things were getting to a point. We're coming to a point that I was like, I'm not sure where they will take this. But then they take it, or I should say he, Naoki, or Urasawa, takes this to, honestly, it's a very crazy idea in my mind, the time leap and what happens. And so I just, this story has remained intriguing to me. There's so many questions to answer. It's actually very funny and very heartwarming. You'll connect with the characters. You'll grow very fond of them. Especially, I really connect with Kana and Kenji, and their relationship is just like so sweet to watch, and you really get attached to that. And also just like this is a really tense story. Like you're not sure what's going to happen next, and you really, I promise you will not guess if you just start the story with no knowledge from volume 1. You'll never be able to guess what's going to happen. I gave this 5 stars. I gave this 5 stars out of 5. This is an incredible book. This is probably my favorite of the books so far. But I mean, volume 2 is really strong as well. And I think 1 is a great starter as well. I said as well 2 times in a row there, which is really annoying to me. I can't wait for 4 and 5. Oh, excuse me. All right, everybody, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry about all my stuttering, all my rambling. I was trying to read off my notes, and they helped a little bit. they definitely helped me to collect my thoughts a little bit, but I just talk too fast, and my brain just works too quickly to formulate thoughts. I'm doing it now. Literally, as I'm talking about how my brain works too slowly, I'm doing it. Thanks for watching. I'll shut the fuck up now. I'll be back hopefully soon with another video. I think I gotta do another Hubie 2 coming up pretty quick, and then I probably should do the next installment in the Metal CD collection series. So that'll be there, and I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.